Okay, welcome everyone. Today is July 31, 2025. This is SIG Instrumentation. Let's jump to the agenda. Some items here, so let's get started. I see Rashmi here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Thanks for all the help in the last week, Rita, and then others too who helped push through and get some comments in. So I think I've addressed all of them for both the PRs. The first one is continue running. I think there were concerns about back compat, and I've added like a couple flags and
mhm.
also the description that Pranju had feedback on, and that is addressed. Like I think all the comments are addressed now, and I made it consistent between the config file as well as the CR config file.
Okay,
So I think it's just pending the final review now.
okay, great. Is I think Pranshu is already tagged here.
Yes. Hopefully, I
Looking at
can get
it.
it merged this week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Pancho
thanks.
said that he's going to be busy for the rest of the week. So
Oh,
maybe he will not have time this week, but maybe next week.
Oh, I see. Okay.
oh, seems like there's some failures also here.
Yeah, I this one I'm not able to figure out what it is. I'll spend some more time. It's saying the exact same difference, but yeah, I will see what it is.
Okay. Uh, yeah. Pranshu is going to be available next week. Um,
Okay,
yeah. Okay.
sounds
And
good.
then there was another one.
Yeah, this was the other one, and I saw that Catherine commented, I think sometime yesterday,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
Iron
replied back.
Cat. Right.
Mhm.
This one is, yeah, we wanted to discuss this in the SIG meeting also. I think the current behavior is that for KSM, we are applying overrides of the config file. Like we are overriding the command line arguments with the config file
Right.
values, which seems to be the opposite way to like standard practice of doing it the other way around. So we were wondering if this is the right thing to do here. Uh,
Yeah, I think that would be a breaking change, though, right, from what it is currently.
That is true. That's why I wanted to open this up to uh, like this meeting. Damien, if you have any thoughts on this, do we just make this behavior consistent for all config uh, parameters? That is, just allow config file to override command line arguments, even though in like the main Kubernetes components, we have seen command line arguments overriding the config file parameters.
Oh, that's the way it's done.
Mhm.
I mean, I thought you could only provide one or the other, so.
You could still
Mm,
have both. And if there is any
okay.
overlapping fields, then the command line argument is the one that takes precedence.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Mm, how could we improve? Because for sure, like we want to follow what Kubernetes is doing. Like there is no reason why we should do a different way. Um,
I think the
but we
catch
also
here
want to
is,
improve. Yeah,
yeah, the catch here is that we've already like used the other way before.
I see.
So now do we want to just keep things consistent with that choice that we had made earlier? Or do we want to revise everything and that could be breaking, like Shmi pointed?
Mm. I mean, the best way I think would be to only allow one or the other and not both, if we want to continue that way. Um, yeah, I will try to think about it, but like from like a quick look, I think just forcing user to either use a config file or command lines for specific parameters would make sense. And have some validation that prevents them to set both.
Mm,
I would like to add something. So I think in terms
Okay,
of
good.
breaking change, so we have already taken dependency on the way it is currently, right? So we have CLI and we have like an onboarding mechanism where we even propagate the parameters for the CLI from the ARM templates. ARM templates in Azure are like deployment templates that propagate these values to the deployment, the Kubernetes objects through Azure resources. So we have already taken dependency on the way it is currently, and if it were to like be switched the other way, that would be a major breaking change for us. And I'm not sure if others would have taken dependency that way too. So I think whenever we plan to make that change, that should be made in such a way that it's backward compatible, like we are planning for the other components too. And I think yeah, that needs to thought about a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We need to be careful about this. It'll definitely be breaking. But if we just go ahead with this PR, which is making the other like, the command line params which are not being overridden now support this overriding.
It's not that it's not getting overridden. It is, but it is just getting appended. So it's a bug. It's not like a proper behavior even the way it is today, right? So there are some parameters which are getting overridden completely, whereas
Mhm.
for the others, the values just keep getting appended, which is definitely a bug. It doesn't look like a proper behavior, right? So if I were to delete something and then add something else back, the previous value is still retained.
Yeah, I think there are some bugs there because we didn't define the priority correctly previously. Uh, so I and so we discussed with other people. So basically, the command line should override the configure map.
Yeah, we were just talking about it, Catherine, but that could be like breaking to a lot of users, especially people who have taken that
I
dependency.
I think it's not common that people will use both, because for my case we only use one. We don't use both because it's very confusing if you use both.
But that's the way it is today, isn't it? So if we
Yeah,
were to change that, then that would be a breaking change.
yeah, but I think it so yeah, it's a breaking change, but users can change their configure something. So currently, I think it's very rare that people will use the same parameter in both command line and command map. Usually, they will be different.
Yeah, if I were to add something in our scenario, it makes perfect sense, right? So we are providing something as a CLI argument, and we want to provide the option to override it because there are many cases where the scale of the cluster can affect the performance of the cube state metrics where we provide. So the scenario is that we provide some monitoring as like a package as managed Prometheus on Azure, and we turn on certain collectors for the resources, and we also provide some default dashboards to light up all these scenarios. Now in a very large cluster, so kubestate metrics can start seeing issues where the number of metrics that are being scraped by resources are not being handled by the kubestate metrics. And because sharding is also not there yet, where it can automatically do HA and scale and then adapt to the changing requirements of the scale requirements of the cluster, we want to provide a capability for the users to be able to override the config themselves so that they can manage the scale. So this is kind of going back to the sharding question too, because it's not able to adapt properly to the scale. We need to be able to provide other ways to the customer to be able to mitigate the default behavior.
Yeah, so basically, it's a scale issue, and because we cannot do scale, so
Yeah.
we are seeking other
Yes.
uh, option there.
Yes. Yeah. That's another issue that we are trying to tackle.
That is linked to this change, but the way you described, if this is a bug, that is also a concern of its own, right? That needs
Yeah,
fixing. If
yeah,
you're just
yeah. There are other issues. So the reason that I originally started working on this is because of the scale issue. And that's the reason I started looking at sharding. I was like, okay, now sharding is not there yet. Okay, this is the other way to do it. And I was like looking into this, and that's when I realized that, oh, this the behavior is not consistent. So if we fix this, then we can figure out a way until sharding is implemented. And then we can pick up sharding whenever that is available in the right way, when it provides HA and provides for scaling. And that's kind of the flow that we have been going through the state of the project currently.
uh
I have one question. You said you want to use the config map to override the command line. So which field you want to override?
Um, Ideally, I am only mostly interested in the collectors for the resources, the metric allow list and the annotation allow list.
But
Sorry, the label allow list and the annotation allow list.
so you are saying that if a customer found out or memory issue, they can change the allow list.
Yes,
But
yes,
uh,
they can alter the collectors.
yeah,
Go
but
ahead.
that one doesn't solve the problem. For example, we know there are some metrics they are very important, but the cardinality is very high. So we need to keep it. So
Yeah.
finally we have the issue again about scale.
Yeah, so for example, so for config resources, right? So by default, we provide like a set of collectors, the resources, like config maps, or there are about pods, nodes, and whatever, right? And then we have these dashboards that are relying on these metrics that are collected by these resources. So they are enabled by default when they enable manage Prometheus. And then they are seeing cardinality issues because there are some resources that are exposing a lot of metrics, but they don't really rely on them. They don't need it. For most of the customers, the dashboards make sense, but for some customers, they don't. And they are seeing scale issue because of the single instance of cube state metrics. And they want to turn some off and keep the others on. And there's no way to do it currently because we are setting the resources at startup for cube state metrics. So this is providing an ability for them to turn off the resources and then keep whatever they are interested in, maybe just pods or maybe just nodes, and then still have the scale support from KSM for just that resource, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but in the long term, it won't solve problem because, for example, the pods Carnet is very big. If we have 100K pods, we have 100 time series.
Yeah, pods is just an example, but they might not need pods. It's not solving the problem. Yes, I completely agree. The
Oh,
problem,
God.
I think solving the problem is sharding, and it's not there, right? So that's why this is kind of a workaround, and the work, and with the current state it would work, but there is a bug. That's the reason I'm fixing it, so that to I can leverage this feature to make it work until we have sharding for scale.
yeah, I also feel like this is not like a feature like change, right? This is fixing something that's kind of already broken. So solving the scalability problem is one issue, and then fixing like some broken overriding of certain fields is another.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, but I think we should use a command line to override config map, not config map to override command line.
So
Because I
that
saw someone mention that the reason why is because let me find it. There's some reasons because all the Kubernetes standards, API server, and other component they are using command line to override config map. The reason is because so someone said the reason is because we can imagine a config map being shared, but the flags are unique to the process.
But that would be a breaking change, right, from the current behavior.
This would work for your scenario either. You would need at least an operator to update the config yourself, or like to update the config for users.
Right.
Mm.
I almost feel like switching the
We want to fix the bug. Like we can go ahead and
right.
make the override of the like by the config map. We keep the precedence of like config map takes over CLI flags, even though it's wrong. That's what we have already. So maybe you can fix the bug and figure out if we need or if we want to change the behavior going forward afterward. But while keeping in mind that we need to find a way to not break everyone while doing so. But I'd be fine like moving with that fix, like moving ahead with that fix and thinking about like whether CLI flag should override the config map afterward.
So Daniel, are you proposing a new flag to say which one should override which one?
Not necessarily. Like for now, I'd say that like everything should override from the config map because that's what we used to have before on some fields. So we should keep that behavior working for all fields. And then
Yeah.
afterward, yeah, we need to think about a solution of
I
like,
think
do we want the CI to take over? Yeah, go ahead.
I think personally it's not only so personally I think it's merged. So some fields command line will override config map, and some fields command map will override not command line.
And that's not the behavior today, though.
I
It's
mean today
that,
is always config map override command line.
yes, yes.
But you meant that the command line. Yeah. But for example, if the command line is set and the config map is set, in some cases we will use the field from the command line.
No, not for any of the fields. So the way
Yes.
that it works today is that it is appending. It's not overriding. For some fields, it overrides completely, whereas for others, it's appending. And it's a bug because suppose there is a collector in the resources, right? So there is pods, and then I create a config file that has nodes, and then I delete the config file. Excuse me, and then I delete the config file, and then I put say some other resource like config map instead of nodes. So when I look at the KSM config that is being picked up, it has pods, it has nodes, and it has config map, and nodes doesn't exist anywhere, which is a bug, right? So this is basically fixing that behavior to keep it consistent with the other parameters and also keeping only the config that is existing in the config file.
But you mentioned that they are not override always. It means sometimes we are using the field from command line.
No, I don't
Yeah.
think that's.
Yeah,
Is-
like I said, it's appending. It's not.
Yeah,
overriding.
so currently I think it's merged. It's not. So currently sometimes command line will override the command map. Sometimes the command will override the command line.
No, it's never overriding. So the CLI is not. I think the issue has more details. If you can click on the issue, I think I put more details in the issue too. Yeah. And the comment for the file also says that the intersecting options should be overridden by the config file. That's what I say in the code. So that's the expected behavior, and this is the bug.
Yeah, but the expected behavior is not a standard. It's wrong at the beginning.
Yeah, but that's also something that we've adopted like from beginning, right? That was earlier behavior. It's not something that we're introducing now. So we have to also think about backwards compatibility here. If there is already this standard for KSM that we have established that we're going to always override using the config file, then I guess it's okay to make that behavior consistent. And then
Yeah.
whether to turn that around should be like a feature request, maybe like a cap, but KSM doesn't have caps, but it has to be considered like a enhancement and that has to be carefully thought of uh, how to even go about it.
I agree. And also to add, I think I created this issue like 2 or 3 years ago, and I see that there were others wanting this feature too, where config file overrides the CLI. I can point those two, but so that's why I think that there might be others who are relying on this feature, and it will be a breaking change that's changed if the behavior is were to change.
AG, like to make it consistent and then address the issue of the config map providing the CLI flag afterward. That's
Yeah.
totally fine by me.
Yeah, I agree to that. We don't have to make a decision here. We can carry the discussion on the PR and on the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, but overall, I think it makes sense to just fix this broken thing for some fields, and then we can have a separate issue to address the precedence. What should take over what?
But will it be a breaking change? Because maybe personally, some people is using a very weird config map and a command line combination. After the list change, the behavior will change after. So at least this one should be in a new release.
New release, but I wouldn't make it a major because I would treat it more as a bug rather than a breaking change. But I see your point, Catherine, and I think we should at least have maybe not an alert, but maybe logs that tells users that they have both specified, just so that just as a warning and say, well, is this expected or not? Because there might be something wrong. I would just do that. I think it's fine. Because if you take the behavior that Rashimi or what Rashimi is trying to achieve, that behavior would be normal to specify both the CLI and the config, but maybe for users it's just they might have messed up their config.
Okay, any more thoughts on this?
So does this need more discussion, or can we get to closure in a few days, because it's been active for some time and there's been quite a bit of back and forth happening.
Insights on the PR, and maybe once Pancho is back, or if Manuel also agrees, then we can, or also Catherine, we can move forward.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, let's move on to the next item. No Revlin? Are you here? Yes.
Yes, I'm here. That's a PR related to control manager.
Okay.
List available HTTP endpoint that you sent to me. I fix the comment you put, but I have a problem in tests related to Node.
Oh, these test failures?
Yes, the three tests failed in the same point.
This probably is not related to your change, though. Did you try syncing it, rebasing it on top of head?
Yes, this I put the failure summary in chat.
Okay. Okay, I can give it a look. I don't see the connection between this and the change that we're making for status Z. I highly doubt it's related. Let me respond to the PR.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for working on this. We have 3 more minutes. Next item is by me. This one is regarding this PR where I was tagged. There was a new metric being introduced, and the values for this metric is computed from a cache. And then I realized that there is other places, new PRs that are trying to do something similar. And so the issue is, how do we depict when there are problems retrieving a value from the cache. When the cache is stale, how do we express that in the metric? I think for this one, we agreed to have a -1 value, like record a -1 value to denote that there were problems. Either the cache was stale or there was problems retrieving the value from the cache. But then I saw the other PRs and I wanted to just bring this up to the SIG, whether we should have some sort of a standard here. Like, how do we want to suggest folks to record cache retrievals failures?
-1 values, I'm not like a big fan of that. Like in that particular case,
Yeah.
it shouldn't impact that much. But usually, like you would take the metric as if it was summed, like between all the time series. So if you start recording -1s,
It's
you would
going to
have an
break
erroneous
aggregation.
values at the end. Yeah, like for aggregation, kind of messed up the results.
Right.
So I would either usually not record the metric at all for
Yeah.
that particular collection,
Yeah.
just keep it, and instead either there is a counter that increments like number of failures or like number of total requests, and then I can split between the request that succeeded, the one that failed. And that's what I would usually do instead of having -1s.
Yeah, I also did
So
not,
like
yeah,
yeah.
like the -1 recording, but especially because it's breaking aggregations. And I think Marek pointed that they did not want to add more metrics just to record failures. So they proposed this new, maybe it's not new, but this new metric with timestamp support that Prometheus has, where you can record the timestamp while recording the metric itself. So currently, Prometheus server attaches a timestamp to a metric when it's at scrape time, but there is an option to override maybe that value when you are actually recording the metric, and then somehow use that. I don't even know, like, how will you use that information while querying for the metric? But if that's something that we want to promote as a suggestion.
Because if you want to use a specific timestamp, you have to tell the engine which timestamp you want to like compute your expression at. So it's kind of difficult to use. I don't know, because to me, like they could have added a new label that says error or whatever,
Yeah.
and that would be fine. Like in terms of cardinality, that doesn't add anything. Like you just like multiply by 2 the number of times potential times A that you have, but errors are unlikely, especially in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
In the past, though, have we suggested creating a label or having a separate metric to record failures? I remember this discussion has happened
yeah, like
before too.
it's like this discussion never goes anywhere because like both are valid options.
Yeah.
I think the one preferred is to have a new metric because it simplifies querying
Mm-hmm.
because you can have like two different parts of your query. You don't have like to have the same metric with like the label and so on. So you don't have to do like number total minus number of errors to get the total number of errors
Right.
of success. So it simplifies that way, but yeah, I think it's kind of the same to be honest. Both are valid to me.
Okay, so we haven't expressed a
No, we
preference
haven't
of one over
decided
the
on that
other.
one.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
no. I think like if I remember correctly from a blog post back like a long time ago, I tried to find it again but couldn't. From a maintainer of Prometheus, they were advising creating a new error metric for this scenario just because it simplifies the expressions.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the only reason. So yeah, I think both are fine to be honest.
I see.
Like it's kind of nitpicky at that point.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I guess we agree that we will not recommend users to have like this -1 value for metrics.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and then provide them with these options maybe.
Yeah, and with the failure label, you can specify different cause for errors, so that's always more beneficial if you want more verbosity on what's happening.
Okay, sounds good. I can respond with that on the PR.
But for Marek's metric specifically, I don't know if like maybe an option could be to skip recording the metric at all.
I think the concern for that was that there's going to be gaps when people just query for the metric in the dashboards. I don't know if
Yeah.
that is like remediable though, like having some sort of an
Usually
integration.
you take more data points to account
Right.
for that. Like let's say you need 2 data points to compute something.
Uh-huh.
You would take a window of like 4 data points just to make sure that you have enough.
Enough points.
That's
Yeah,
usually what's happening.
right. Okay. I will make sure to respond with these things on the newer PRs. I guess the one that Marek had has already been merged with the -1 value in there.
Yeah. But either way, like it's just a value. Like you cannot do much with a value anyway,
Yeah,
when you are computing. So like we can always change that. It's not an issue.
that's true. Okay, sounds good. And we are over time. So thank you everyone for joining. There's one more item left on the agenda with Pranshu's not here. So once he's back, we can address that in the next meeting. So see you guys next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.